Hey guys, welcome back. So it's a new day, and we got a plan, and I think we'll see if it works. I hope it works. So these two holes are okay. This one's very sad. It's got what's left of a broke off bolt in there. So here's our plan. These are, I don't even know what size this is, but they're like small, probably M8s or something. So what we're going to attempt to do, I actually bought the kit, but then I forgot I already have this. So this is a 3/8/16, just a tap and a drill bit. So anyway, I already have the tap, and I've got plenty of drill bits. So we're just gonna drill that sucker out. We're gonna do this one first, because that's the one that's all screwed up. And then hopefully the hole cleans up enough that we'll feel good running a tap in there to fix that. After that, we may just go ahead and do the other two. And I got these bigger bolts. So these are the bolts that broke. I took them out of the bag for that to really be obvious. But this is basically like an M8, and that's a 3/8. And these are, I mean, look at this. See how it says like 8.8? But then you go look at their other bolts, like this is a 3/16, and it doesn't even have markings on the head. So these just look like high quality bolts, but they're just like cheap junk. Pretty sure. Maybe we'll do some testing later to show that, but I'm pretty sure. Now granted, these are made in China grade 8 bolts as well, so, but I've used these before. I've had better luck with these. I don't think these are the best, but I'm pretty certain they're better than those. So anyway, that's our plan. We're going to drill this hole, tap it. Hopefully we'll be able to get a bolt in there and it'll feel good. And then, frankly, we'll probably just go ahead and do the other two so that they have bigger bolts. And then we'll try the sucker again. The only thing I'm worried about now is this thing bending, because it was actually bending before the bolts broke. So not sure what we're going to do about that. We might be able to put like a washer to help put the load closer to the center where it won't bend as much. So maybe we'll try that. I thought about just making this whole thing, but the problem is, which I might could figure it out, but I don't have a tap that's this damn big. This looks like a 5/8 thread, fine thread, something like that. It's pretty big. I don't have anything like that. So not quite sure yet. We're probably going to just try using this and maybe put like washers under it or something. I don't know. We'll deal with that in a little bit. Or maybe I'll put a backup plate or something. Maybe we'll do that. That might actually work. Just make a new plate that sits behind this one. We'll see if that could work. Anyway, let's first see if we can drill and tap that old bolt out. Okay, so good news, mostly. A little bit of bad, but mostly good. So we got all three drilled. What you'll note on this hole, see the hole way in the back? See how crooked it is? We drilled that one crooked as fuck. I haven't looked at these two, but I'm pretty sure these went straight. So these two are good. That one's pretty crooked. That was my fault. There's a cross member in the way. I'm doing this with the engine in the car, obviously. And I wasn't lined up on it. Thought I was, checked it like 3 times, but I was off up and down mostly, and a little to the left. But anyway, they're all drilled and tapped. These are now bigger. They look way bigger after doing that. Anyway, we're about to run the bolts in and out, try to make sure they're mostly free, and then we're going to set this up and see what happens. We are the champions. Man, this thing kicks my ass. We did get this thing apart finally. It was a lot of work. I haven't even took this all out yet. These bolts, these grade 8s, they'll probably come out of there, but this damper is, at a minimum, whatever those bolts screw into needs to get replaced. But look in here. Look at all that gouging and stuff. That's why it was stuck. When I put this on, I remember it being like way worse than I thought it should be. You can see all the, I was right about that. See all the gouging marks? That's why she was so stuck. And unfortunately, that's on the crank too. As you can see. Now on the crank, I can pull that key out and sand the shit out of it and, you know, knock the high spots off. So it's not like I'm gonna tear the whole engine down over this. But it did gouge, and that is why it, that key's still tight. Oh, take that off camera. Anyway, that's why she was stuck. It went together bad, and it just didn't want to come apart. It was tight all the way. Man, what finally worked. So we put these big super duper bolts, and these things are way stronger than the ones that were in there before. We put these in, and we ran the impact as hard as it would go, which I've got a decent impact. It's a Milwaukee and it's AC. I don't really know how much torque it has, but it's pretty strong. The only thing that thing has ever failed to take off is a Honda crank damper bolt. It's the only bolt it's legitimately failed. It took this one off, and this one had a lot of Loctite and everything, but after a few seconds it spun this one off too. But on the puller, it stalled and it wouldn't go. And I tried all kinds of stuff, but what ended up working is I took a ball peen hammer, and while this thing was jammed up as tight as could be, I just smacked this really hard with the hammer. And I did this a couple times and it didn't seem to work. And I just kept doing it almost out of frustration because nothing else was working. But it started to look like it might have moved a tiny bit. And I ended up getting a caliper. There's the caliper. I took a caliper and I was measuring. I could reach in and go from this flat surface right there that way to the damper. And I took a measurement. And then I repeated the hammering process and it moved about 20 thousandths. So, you know, a 50th of an inch. Not much, but it did technically move. And at that point I just kept repeating it. And then I still had the bolt in here. So I was pushing on the bolt, and then the bolt pushes on these threads because I didn't want to damage the crank. Even though I see it's got a big thing there, I probably could have, I don't know, it seemed like a good idea. So what happens is as the dampener is coming off, eventually it would hit the bolt, and you got to take the setup apart and back the bolt out a little bit. But these bolts here are super stuck. Like, I don't know if those are going to come out. They probably will, but anyway, I didn't want to take those out. They didn't feel good going in, to say the least. So we were having to reach in here with a pair of pliers and spin this bolt by hand, and luckily that worked. And you can see how tight this was. Look what it did to the top of that bolt. I mean, it just like, it got hammered. And that was a brand new bolt when I installed it, so that's the first time it's ever been removed. So anyway, we got it apart. The next step is to see if all of this was for something or for nothing, because the whole reason we took this apart, there was a while back they had a thing where these were timed wrong, and I don't even know what they're supposed to look like, but I have a stock damper, so I'm about to go take all this junk off the dampener and then pull a stock dampener next to this, and we'll have a look and see if this one's fine or if it's bad. If it's fine, we took all this apart for basically nothing, other than the fact that we now know for sure that it's good. And if it is bad, well, good thing we took it apart. Although ATI said that they would replace it or fix it if it's a bad one. So I almost hope it is a bad one, because it's bad now. I can't put this back on the car, so I don't know what they'll say when they see how bad a condition it's in, but problem for future, Pat. Anyway, we're going to take all this crap off. I'm going to get a stock dampener set up here, and we'll take a look at that. Alright, so we got this whole apart. That's an old gear, and I don't know, I got to go Google it, but it's not perfect. So you can see on the OEM gear, they have like a keyway, and it seems to line dead nuts with the bottom of that tooth and this key. See if I can get that to show up pretty clearly. And then it also lines up with this mark right there. So basically, anyway, this all lines up really well on the factory gear. Let me try to zoom this in. There you go. Pretty damn close. When we come over to this gear, this mark doesn't really line up completely. It's close, but it's clocked a little off. And then on the ATI, this piece comes off. And you can see the lineup of the key relative to the tooth. And again, these don't really line up either. They're not that off, but they're off. That should be lined up with the center of this. I mean, it's close. Anyway, it's a little off. So, don't know if this will get warrantied, or I don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to go look into this. I guess worst case, I could just put a stock damper on here. I've got this one, and that one looks real cruddy, so probably not running it, but this one, I think I'm missing some parts. I don't remember these Mazda ones. I'm missing a couple things. I might have to buy one, I don't know. But something I'll look into. So, I don't know. No smoking gun yet, but I think this damper's gonna need a rebuild at a minimum, and it might just be scrap at this point. I don't know.